and welcome to the Academy of Magical Arts. My name's Iana Rain, and I'm here to talk to you about Yule. Yule is considered and very much rooted in the cycles of the year, and it's the longest night and the shortest day. And this is where the goddess comes once again, and she becomes the Great Mother, and she gives birth to the new Sun King. This is also considered to be the dark night of our souls in a lot of traditions, because this is where it's really hard to keep that fire burning inside and keep life and hope going. So with that being said, that light that you burn from like a Yule log or something like that, sacred fires, is what helps keep that light going. There's a correlation, of course, between what we are presently experiencing and what we bring forth, and that's why it would be considered a darkest day of soul, because it's hard to keep, if you think about the time of year that it is, and when it's, you're looking outside and it's, where we are, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and it's already getting dark out. And that kind of has a way of weighting itself on you, because we like human beings and we like to have that light, and it gives a certain amount of energy. Yule itself is representing that birth of the sun god, or the sun king. And basically what that is in a lot of traditions, one of them being Norse, there's a lot of Celtic and there's Scandinavian and European traditions that connect to this. This is basically very widespread. It's giving that rebirth for spring. It's like the death and the rebirth. It's the time of the god and waiting on the new mother, for the sun king. And so basically some of these kings are some of the pagan gods. There's Perseus, Dionysus is one of them, Mithra, Horus. These are all very much connected to this holiday. Yule is considered like a fire festival, and that's, shouldn't come as a surprise, because this is the darkest time of the year. And what happens is people used to get the Yule Log, and I'm sure you've all heard of the Yule Log. And traditionally, you would never purchase your Yule Log, because if you were to purchase your Yule Log, that would be bringing bad omens into your home. This is all something that should be gifted, and that also wraps in with the gift giving. When you have this time of year and people are giving you gifts and everybody's worried about what you're going to get, and it's about sharing that prosperity, and it's giving a blessing and prosperity to another home and another family, and that's where that tradition also comes into play. But going back to the Yule Log, if you go in and you take your Yule Log and you burn it, you would like, of course, the outcome to be for it to completely burn itself out. And if that were to happen, it was thought that you would have great prosperity and that everything would be blessed. Your crops, your land, your family, your wife would be fertile. This is a tradition that they sought very highly in for like the prosperity of the next year. Now, if you're unfortunate and for some reason your Yule Log has burnt for a little while and put itself out, that was also considered a bad omen, and that you were probably going to have some troubles throughout the year with possible bad crop, possible finances, anything that was associated. There could be sick, and with representing kind of like your light kind of has gone out, because the fire was unable to keep itself going until there was ash. Now, if you were lucky and your log had burnt down to ash, those ashes were actually kept. They spread them in blessings. They used them in ceremonies. They used them in healings. They put them on their land. It was a very sacred thing for them to have in tradition for the Yule Log ashes. So going into some more of that tradition, you talk about, the Christmas tree and the pine boughs and things such as that. Part of the tradition for that is trying to bring something in that has life. And there's, if you think of an evergreen tree, it's, in some places there's a ton of snow and frigid weather for the winter. And what happens is the evergreen tree is still green. There's still a lot of life in it. And those pine boughs were brought in. They did shrubs, they did boughs, they did trees. And it was to represent that life that is still going, and that there's hope for the spring, for rebirth. This is all about the cycle of death and rebirth. And when they would bring the evergreens in and the pine boughs and such, they would decorate them with, of course, candles for the fire and the light for the hearth. You would have fruit and fig and stuff like that to represent prosperity and harvest for the next and upcoming year. And also with something that I failed to mention earlier, in Yule, it's just coming back to me now. It's also related to a feast that was lasting 12 days, and that's a Norse tradition. And that's where the association with the 12 days of Christmas comes from in Christianity. It's very ironic how close all of these things run, and people just don't understand that it's very much one and the same. So going back to some of the other traditions, mistletoe is very much related to Yule, and basically with the mistletoe, it's very druid. When utilizing the mistletoe, it should be cut with a golden scythe. The mistletoe should be cut 6 days into the waxing moon. And also, what is probably not known by a lot of people, that if you actually would have gotten hit back in the day with an arrow that was made from mistletoe, is extremely deadly and it's very poisonous. And a fun fact for current time is that back in the day, they had outlawed using mistletoe and decoration in Christian churches due to the connection to the Druids and any kind of pagan and magical associations. This is actually still in place in a lot of churches and facilities now, and it's widely observed. So that's kind of a fun fact. Candle burning for Yule is also a huge tradition. Of course, the colors of candles would be red, green, blue. You would definitely decorate them with sprigs of holly or some other kind of evergreen. And this was done to start that 12-day celebration. And what it is doing is it's starting the Yule going into Christmas Eve, and that light is supposed to be shining for the darkest week of the year. And that ties into the 12 days of Christmas, and it goes back to that feast that I was talking about as well. You can also burn these candles. You should never put these candles out by blowing them out. And also with this, if your candle is supposedly gone out for some unforeseen circumstances other than your own volition, this is also not a good omen for you. But you have to be very respectful when you're taking that flame and you're putting it out, because of what that flame is representing in this process, in this festival of lighting a candle. Also, I will go into more detail about the candles and candle magic and their correlation and correspondence later. A video, and I will be producing a Yule candle video for people who would like to celebrate by lighting a candle for some kind of spell work. Back to the candle and the extinguishing of the candle, you are going to want to let that burn out on its own, or take prongs like silver, some kind of a ritual tool that is like thongs, and you would put the flame out with that. Now, this task obviously should be performed by somebody in the household who holds that with great respect and regard. So, a little bit more here. Wassailing, I'm sure you've heard about Yule and wassailing and caroling and singing. This is what's really cool about this. A lot of people don't really know why that is part of a tradition, but part of it is when people are singing and caroling, it's putting out good vibrations for themselves. They're trying to raise consciousness. They're trying to heighten energy. It's basically putting out higher vibrations. So where wassailing comes in is it's toasting and singing, and it's raising vibrations, and it's for, again, prosperity, and it's to keep things elevated as far as energetically. The cool thing about wassail as a drink, and what they did with that is they kind of used it as, it's kind of like a natural antibiotic. It helped people. It was used as an immune booster, and basically like a simple wassail recipe has red apples, some brown sugar, there's ale or cider in it, there's some sherry or white wine, cinnamon, some ginger, and some lemon. So if you know anything about those alone, they have a lot of natural antiseptics in there. There's anti-inflammatory in there. There's immune boosters in there. And of course, we don't need to go into how magical apples are. So that's where wassailing has come into play for the Yule. So going back into some of the traditions and things that are associated with Yule, this is just a quick rundown of some of the things that you can think about or associate with Yule. For Yule, when you're looking at deities, anything to do with newborn gods, sun gods, mother goddess, triple goddess. You know, they talk about Bridget and Dagda. Dagda is the daughter of Bridget, and she is basically a metal worker, and she represents cauldrons. Of course, that's fire and that's fertility, and it's basically, it's nurture and nature for like all the world's children. Symbolism of Yule, of course, we have the rebirth of the sun. It's the longest night, so you, with the sun and bringing back the daylight, of course, you have the darkness. Winter solstice, planning for the future. So those are the symbolisms of Yule. The symbols of Yule are the Yule Log. You can do the Yule Log with 3 candles, and that is a really good option for people who do not have the option of actually burning a Yule Log. That is a great tradition. Of course, we have evergreen boughs, hollies, wreath, mistletoe, pillar candles. You can do cloves, fruit, and simmering pots with elements of herbs that will raise vibrations in your home. Wassail, poinsettia, and Christmas cactuses. And the poinsettia and the Christmas cactuses are associated because they are flowering plants that flower in winter. I will, however, give a disclaimer, because poinsettias, if you have pets, and a lot of us do, if they eat it, they are toxic. You cannot have, also the mistletoe is toxic too. With a simmering pot, now this is just some food for thought. I started mine, and it's to raise the vibration in the home and for prosperity. And what I did was I took a little tiny kettle and I leave it simmer on low. I added cloves. I added cinnamon sticks. There's a little bit of vanilla in there. I have cut up orange and put some orange in there. I also did some pine and some cedar. And I have this on my stove. I boil it a little bit every day. I simmer it. And you just add a little bit of water to it. I think I even put a little allspice and some nutmeg in there. And basically this is to raise the energy in the home, and it's just really inviting and very warm and comforting. So that's just a little food for thought for you there. So back to things that are represented here. We've got herbs that are represented by Yule, and that's blessed thistle, evergreen, frankincense, holly, mistletoe, oak, pine, sage, and yellow cedar. Foods that you can associate with Yule are cookies, caraway cakes soaked in cider, fruits, nuts, anything with pork, turkey, eggnog, ginger tea, spiced cider, wassail, lamb's wool. You can have ale, nutmeg, roasted apples. Basically, this is winter harvest stuff. Incense that you would want to look for Yule is pine, cedar, bayberry, and cinnamon. Colors, obviously, red, green, gold, white, silver, yellow, and orange. If you need any kind of stones for Yule, it's recommended rubies, bloodstones, garnets, emeralds, and also diamonds. Activities that are associated with Yule are the caroling, wassailing, trees, bringing in evergreens, burning of the Yule log, of course, decorating of the tree, exchanging of presents for the prosperity, kissing underneath the mistletoe, honoring Kris Kringle, the dramatic pagan god of Yule. Spell work for Yule is bringing in peace, harmony, love, and increased in happiness. Deities of the Yule are Goddess Bridget, Isis, Demeter, Diana, the Great Mother. Also, gods that are associated are Apollo, Ra, Odin, Lug, the Oak King, the Horned One, the Green Man, and of course, the Divine Child, Yeshua, or Jesus, if that's what you prefer. When doing Yule ceremonies and such, one thing to keep in mind is to have very light and loving energy, pay homage to the light that's inside, and some of the traditions are kind of lost now, but there are simple ways, like you can do the Yule log with the 3 candles, you can do the simmering pot, you can do wassail, you can go caroling, taking in the evergreens. These are all things that keep the tradition alive. There is so many things that you can do to just keep that little bit of the old ways inside. So one of the things that I want to make sure that I drive home to for Yule is to remember and to cherish that light that's within. This is a time of year that there is a lot of darkness happening. People are in that time of reflection, and it's downtime, and it's time to look back on what happened over the year. This is a great time to do inner work and self-love. And also, if you see people struggling, I would encourage you to reach out to them. Spread cheer, be loving. Even if you can't reach that person, send that energy outward. I really appreciate your time. I want you to all have a blessed Yule, and I will be posting a spell for candle work for Yule. Stay tuned, and thank you. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you and we love you. Until next time, blessed be, and thank you for tuning in to the Academy of Magical Arts. Blessed be and namaste.